the major aspects of Harry Potter Magic Awakened is dueling. Witches and wizards try and build the best decks they can with the cards they have, figuring out which cards go with which echoes, checking which cards can combo with companions, and checking which cards are the strongest. And now, what if we completely disregarded all of that and just went with random decks? Can we win duels with whatever the fate gives us? Or will we crash and burn faster than a Whomping Willow destroys anything that comes near it? Let's find out in this video. So, how will this work? 1. We'll add all the echoes, companions, and cards into a randomizer, then we'll let the randomizer pick the echo, companions, and all of the cards. 2. Then we'll have to compete in 10 ranked matches to see whether we can win with the deck or not. Now, number 3, battles against bots don't count. And when we say bots, they're usually the ones with the default profile picture and single word common names. So names like Bob or Ashley. Not saying that all players with those names are bots, but those are the general formats of the bots that I've seen. So anything that is similar to that, we take out of the count. Number 4, no switching of any cards, companions, or echoes. We can switch the order, but not the card itself. And with our rules set in place, let's see what cards we actually draw. First, for our echo, we got Bellatrix, which is actually pretty good since it can work with both summons and cards, and we get additional damage from the Death Eaters. So let's see what cards will help us in this battle. First card we drew was the baby Antipodian Opali. Good for board clear. It flies so ground summons can't reach it, and it can't be hit by Glacius and other ground-only spells. So we thought, okay, we can work with that, Then we got Swooping Evil for pushing an enemy away, and it'll keep doing damage to it so long as it doesn't move away or attack it. Essentially, if they get confronted like McLagan, they'll keep getting damaged. After Swooping Evil, we drew Flipendo. Doesn't seem useful for the cards that we have so far, but that could easily change. We were still pretty hopeful at this point. Next, we got the Centaur. We really needed a low MP cost card. Unfortunately, this is another damage summon whose attack you can easily avoid. At least they can do AoE damage now. Then we drew T-Bow. High damage with a charge. Good damage, but really easy to run out of. At this point, I'm hoping to get at least some control cards, or at least one. Now we get Accio Snowman, a summon that will move summons across the field. Not that any of our current summons will need it since they can move on their own. Well, I guess it'll move them there faster, but we already have Flipendo. At least this one we can use to move across the field. Also, this is the point where hope has died for me. Then we got what would be a great damage dealer, the Norwegian Ridgeback. Unfortunately, you'll need to heal it up for it to start to do damage. And that's where our final card comes in, the Phoenix, our only heal ability. Unfortunately, it has a very high MP cost, so you can't quickly combo it with Norwegian Ridgeback. Also, it takes some time to respawn on the field, and you can't really force it to just heal the Norwegian Ridgeback. I would have much preferred the Murtlap or Essence of Dittany. Anyway, on to our companions. We got Kevin. Not that helpful for the cards we got. And finally, we got our control card. Hopefully, Abigail survives long enough on the field to help us out. And unfortunately, we may need her in wolf form if we aren't able to do enough damage. At least we got Grop, who can, at least tank for us a bit. So this is our entire deck. We have a Summoner Bellatrix deck. I was hoping that our main damage would come from the Norwegian Ridgeback. Unfortunately, our only heal is Phoenix, which is another high MP cost card. That means that our deck isn't just a slow build deck, it's an ultra slow build deck. Also, none of the cards were level 18. let's see how that helps us in our battles. So our first match was against Bot. How can we tell? Standard looking name, default profile picture. That automatically makes me sus. And then they run in the path of the T-bow. I mean, sure, they might have been a player, but they fit the criteria we set for Bot, so battle not counted. Although we did win it, but again, not counted. In our first actual battle, we match up against a Dumbledore Echo. And as you know, with Dumbledore Echoes, the longer it goes, the worse it gets for us. For me, I also have a slow deck. Though, this deck can ramp up quickly if it can do a lot of targeted damage, which we only have T-bow and Swooping Evil for, and you can easily get out of those. Our opponent starts with a Golden Snitch. This helps charge the Dumbledore Echo and help with MP to charge the Echo even more. And while they start with their strategy, we put down Kevin, because he's there. And as part of hoping to start damaging our opponent, we put down the Norwegian Ridgeback. Unluckily, our opponent has Confringo, and we placed the egg near our Kevin, so both of them stand there like a muggle-born first year trying to find platform 9 3/4. Our opponent also has Prior Encantado, and doubles up on the Confringo, again charging up their Dumbledore Echo and doing damage to our egg. Then finally we get Phoenix. Hopefully that'll heal our egg. Then we get Baby Manticores that we need to deal with, along with the Enchanted Popping Candy. Both movement generating cards, which I guess the Dumbledore Echo can use since the Dumbledore can give them damage cards instead. And movement is such a great counter to our T-bow, Centaur, and Sweeping Evil. At this point, I can start feeling the Dementors closing in to suck out any hope we had of winning this match. So, to try and control our opponent, we bring out Abigail, so we can actually do damage. And of course, our opponent has Ivy to delete Abigail. Okay, so we use Swooping Evil against Ivy, but Ivy's stronger, so she's still up, and our Swooping Evil is gone. Then they use a Memory Vial, which would give them more MP to keep powering up Dumbledore, like they needed more of that! They use Protego to tell him to protect the Memory Vial, so we try T-bow, but honestly, at this point, there's been enough time for the Memory Vial to fully charge. And they cast Protego Diabolica. And as our egg is close to hatching, of course, they get to cast Thunderstorm and Confringo, all while Protego Diabolica is still causing damage to the egg. And this is finally the end for our long surviving egg. Then I just started chucking whatever cards instead of trying to summon another Norwegian Ridgeback. At this point, they've already reached their max Dumbledore, and we haven't even summoned the Death Eater yet. To top it off, so just in case you didn't realize, we lost this match. Next battle! We faced off with a Snape deck. I thought, okay, might have a chance here, so long as our summons don't stand too close to each other, and our Centaur stays out of range, they'll be able to do damage. So they start off with a Time Turner, and of course we should try and get rid of that as soon as possible. Their first companion was a Cassandra, and just like Lockhart after getting hit with his own memory spell, I threw Swooping Evil directly at Cassandra. So she just, pushed it out. And then they used Obscurus to hit Kevin. Personally, we didn't really care because Kevin doesn't really help us much, but with the Time Turner out, our center can focus on Cassandra, and that's when we summoned our Antipodian Opali to help out. Our opponent cast another Time Turner, but since they were busy with keeping the Time Turner on us, we were able to do some damage with Swooping Evil, and finally got to summon our first Death Eater to defeat the Time Turner. Just the Time Turner, not the player. Just the Time Turner. Then we got an incoming Glacius and froze our Death Eater. But luckily, we had an Accio Snowman Path there. And then we summoned Abigail. Her Incarcerus allowed both her and the Centaur to do enough damage so that we were actually ahead in health for once. And I was like, we might have a chance. We might have a chance. So I tried to summon our heavy hitter, the Norwegian Ridgeback. only for it to get Obscurus. But now they're vulnerable to damage, so after a few more hits with Abigail and Nativo, they were now below 50% health. Then after our Swooping Evil and a Grop, we were one hit away from summoning our second wave of Death Eaters. So I decided to just go the old-fashioned, hit them with a normal attack approach, and we summoned our Death Eaters, and somehow we won the match! Our next battle, I forgot to check the echo, but all I needed to know was they had a level 18 Monster Brick of Monsters, and that was enough to tell me that I was in for a world of pain. Then you had the level 15 Malfoy gang on top of it, and of course, Kevin was just watching us suffer. We tried to T-bow them, but then they used Expulso, so we tried a different approach, a Swooping Evil. It would have been smart of us if we let the Swooping Evil stay closer so that they could hit the Monster Brick of Monsters along with the Malfoy gang, but we were channeling our inner Mountain Troll. So instead of hitting all of them, we flung one of the Malfoy gang far away, and we still had the rest of the Malfoy gang and the Monster Brick of Monsters to deal with. Then, instead of moving closer to the Malfoy gang and using Flipendo on all of them, we just stood there and used it on one, leaving the rest to chip away at our health. And of course, they summon another Monster Book of Monsters, and as we try and clear it with a T-bow, they use Expulso. Honestly, it seems that we can only do a bit of damage when we have Abigail out. Her attacks crit a lot, and she lets her summons hit our opponents when she uses Incarcerus. This somehow allows us to summon a Death Eater. But we were so far behind in health though, and they just ran over our Death Eater with Hagrid. We did manage to finish summoning a Norwegian Ridgeback before we lost though. I consider that a win. Nah, it was still a loss. But at least we hatched the egg this time, and we managed to get them to below 50% health. Then that was followed by 2 bot battles. In our next actual battle, we were up against a Neville deck. We opened the battle by summoning our egg, which quickly got Avada Kedavra. So that's 1 charge for Avada Kedavra, and as soon as they get to 4, it'll be all over for us. Well, we can use our summons to shield us, but I would really need a Remember All to help me remember to do that. So we try and get rid of Kevin by using T-bow. But as any good Neville deck should, they use Sidelong Impression to get away. And to add to our misery, they have a Death Eater card, which makes sense if they have Avada Kedavra in their deck. The Death Eater quickly disposes of our Centaur. Not that it would have given them a challenge, but that also gives them their second charge for Avada Kedavra. And as sure as Voldemort has no nose, we were not gonna win this battle. Remember earlier when they quickly disposed of our Norwegian Ridgeback with Avada Kedavra, and that means every summon we have, they can quickly eliminate. So they can quickly farm charges for the Avada one-hit win. And of course, being a Neville deck, they had a Desert Master that could also summon Death Eaters. The 2 Death Eaters summoned by the Desert Master disposed of our Abigail and Kevin. This gave them their last 2 Avada charges. Then, the opponent summoned the Death Eater to finish us off. Battle over. Next battle was a bot, and in what seems like a time turner moment, our next battle is with a Dobby Avada deck. And with our attacks easy enough to dodge, going against a Dobby deck isn't going to be good. So we start by trying to damage them with Swooping Evil, which, of course, they easily apparate out of. Then, they easily Avada our Centaur. Charge 1. We try and use T-bow, and once again, they easily get out of that. So now they're trying to damage our Kevin so that they can Avada him. And that's the second charge. Then they use Hermione to Avada our damaged Antipodian Opal Eye and Abigail. Luckily, Abigail survives, but that's charge 3. Then they summon a level 16 Death Eater to Avada our level 13 Antipodian Opal Eye at almost full health. And that's the 4th and final charge. By some luck, even though they inflate us for the final Avada Kedavra, our center gets hit with the spell instead. But They summoned Ron to wrangle Grop and our Norwegian Ridgeback, and I, like a rogue Bludger, decide to get out of the safety of them and open myself to get Inflatus and Avada Kedavra. Next we had 3 bot battles, but our next match was a Newt deck. In this battle, we accidentally sacrificed Kevin in our goal of using Flipendo on the baby Manticores, but somehow only managed to throw Kevin away. Their Abigail managed to do a lot of critical damage on us, and we didn't have any summons that we could quickly summon to get rid of her. We tried Tebow, but it wasn't enough, and instead of positioning the Centaur to get rid of Abigail, we put it, on the other side, so it started to attack the Manticores and Erumpent instead of Abigail, so she was able to get our health to below half before we managed to finish her off. And the Manticores and Erumpent fent Nude Suitcase, so we also got a Hippogriff to deal with now. We tried to summon a Norwegian Ridgeback, but they used Orb of Water and Tebow on it, so by the time we got our Phoenix out, it was too late. At this point, we were at below 25% health, with the Hippogriff out and no way to damage it. We did manage to get rid of it, but it was, a little too late since we were 1 run hit away from a loss. Then we had a battle with a Snape deck. We tried to get rid of Kevin by using Tebow, but they were able to get 2 time turners up as they attacked our Grop to get Kevin fully charged. We get Acioed while there was a time turner up, so we ended up in the middle of our opponent and their time turners. We did manage to do enough damage that we were 1 hit away from summoning a Death Eater. But instead of going near our opponent to do damage, we just stood there in the back. Because, that'll deal damage. We did summon an Abigail, and it dealt enough damage to summon a Death Eater, but at this point, they had enough MP to use Protego to tell them, so the Death Eater only damaged a shield. Then, on top of more of our bad decisions, we summoned a Centaur. A range summon that can stand further back of the field, but we decided to place it right in the range of the Snape Echo. So, in 2 hits, it was demolished. And to finish the job, they summoned an Abigail to perform crit attacks on us, and just like Harry catching the Golden Snitch, Abigail used Incarcerus to finish the match. And on to our next dismal performance, we go against a Ron Echo. Feeling the loss creeping in, we just stood there under the Atmosphere Charm, which, to be fair, did save us some movement so we can waste it on later in the match. Then as they get their Night buff, they summon a level 18. Level 18 Monster Book of Monsters to combo us with the level 18 Abigail, which brought our health down to half. Also, that Monster Book of Monsters just ate our Norwegian Ridgeback egg. We summoned the Centaur to deal with Abigail, but it only lasted 2 hits. And with the Abigail still up and continuously hitting us with crits, we're now down to a quarter of our health. We cast Tebow to try and hit her and our opponent. They, of course, just walk away, but at least we got rid of Abigail? Hopefully, there wouldn't be any more level 18s. Nope. We got a level 18 Yeti with 2 Ron Night buffs. So we got down to a sliver of health. And we managed to push away an incoming charge from a Ron Echo with the Swooping Evil. But the 2 mini Yetis just spawned and the match was over. And then we fight another fast deck, a Luna Echo. And when you have a Luna, you know that Thestrals are not far behind. And on top of having a Luna Echo, they summoned Luna as their first companion. And they started off with an Incarcerus Whizbang combo. Luckily, we hadn't put down our Norwegian Ridgeback egg yet. Now, our goal here was to get rid of Luna as fast as possible before she, Thestrals. But our Grob quickly got destroyed by the Kelpie. And after our opponent uses Glacius, Luna, the companion Luna, then used Thestral on us. And once again, we're back down to 50% health. We managed to hatch a Norwegian Ridgeback, but as it was about to defeat their Kelpie, it split into 2 and defeated our dragon. Then we tried to summon another Norwegian Ridgeback. And we placed it right in melee range, so every normal attack of our opponent, their Kelpie attacked the egg. So, bye-bye egg. Now we're at 25% health, we try and summon another dragon, but they thestraled it. We try and summon a new Norwegian Ridgeback, but we got thestraled, and that was the end of that. Now for our final battle. We go against another Bellatrix deck, but unlike ours, they most likely planned theirs. They used Standard Book of Spells and comboed it with Prior Incantado, so now they have 8 cards that only cost 2 MP. We hoped at this point that they would be horrible cards. But with the same luck as Crab and Goyle trying to figure out Arithmancy, that was quite unlikely. They were able to summon a Mimulus with Miltonia and Piertotum Locomotor, both usually 6 MP. Then they whiz-banged our Grop and summoned a Winged Catapult to keep chipping away at our health. We try and get rid of it with a T-Bow, but remember, that only hits ground units, and with the damage that we've received so far, they managed to summon a Death Eater. We summoned an Abigail in wolf form to try and do some damage, but our plan was foiled with the dropping of our Ron. Good thing Abigail was able to do some damage for us to summon our first Death Eater, and our Death Eater defeated Ron. Then we get attacked by a stack of Monster Book of Monsters, which gives our opponent enough damage to summon their second set of Death Eaters. Then they get around to summoning another stack of Monster Book of Monsters, which of course does enough damage to summon their third set of Death Eaters. And to top it all off, before we even got rid of the Monster Book of Monsters, they got to summon their fourth set of Death Eaters. Truly, icing on the cake for our opponents. And those were our 10 matches. And just in case it wasn't clear, the deck sucked. We didn't have any movement or control card, and majority of our deck had damage that was easy to avoid, and others had just too high of an MP cost to cast in a combo. And sure, you can win in certain scenarios with this deck, but it's not the typical scenario. So, should I keep making random decks until we win at least 50% of our matches? Maybe, maybe not. Comment below. Either way, until next time, fellow mages, see you in the wizarding world.